All right, thanks all. Like Mike said, I'm Bryan Campbell. I've been working at Google for a while now. I'm working at Waymo, working on a self-driving car, teaching you how to understand weather. I've been coding for a very long time, and the real passion I've had in like the last couple of years have been blockchain technology and trying to really understand how does it play a part in my future, how does it play a part in everyone's future, and trying to basically grab hold of this windfall. Hold on one second. I had a thing I had to bring up. Okay, so um, one of the things that I kind of see here that's different um, in this age is that I feel like more people are technology aware than before. I remember when Web 1 and Web 2 came out, and I'm kind of dating myself, but back then I was working at Wayne State University, and I remember email was new for the university, but no one's ever used it before. No one heard of it, and it was like something that we just decided to start using. And I was using it for about maybe a couple months before I saw it on the news. It was like, oh, there's this new thing called email coming out, and there was no web pages. It was just email. It was like maybe some bulletin boards, and I was starting to use it after a while. And I asked everyone, "Do you have an email address?" And like, what's that? I don't have that. And I kind of feel like it's the same thing going on now, except for a lot more people are more technology aware, and so it's a little bit more pushback. But already I can see that these things are not going to be just fads, things that we talk about, but actually it's going to be, years from now, something that everyone's using, whether you want to or not. And so for me, I was hoping that in this opportunity, I can talk about a couple of the main key uh, Web3 technologies that I think would be used every single day, like email or even purchasing things online. I remember purchasing things online was like taboo, but will be mainstream for pretty soon. So I'm going to talk about NFTs, the MetaVerse, and DAOs. So, in general, Web3 technologies are built on blockchains, which are built using smart contracts. So blockchains are 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 these ledgers that everyone shares. Like every single node uh, worldwide shares the exact same ledger, and it's probably easier to think of them as databases or files. Think about having like a file or a database where you can add to it, and whatever you add to it cannot change. You can only add to it. You cannot edit it. You cannot delete anything. You can only add. So if you look at the picture I have at the top right, this is an example where there's like this state of the world, and then a transaction happens, and now there's a new state of the world. So that's pretty much how blockchains work. And so smart contracts are just pieces of data that exist within these blockchains, and smart contracts have templates. So, for instance, like an NFT, NFTs is actually met a guy. I can't remember his name, but he actually created NFTs, and he did a presentation for me a couple months ago. But it started off as NFT or as contract E721, and it basically states uh, that a person can own an ID, a token ID, and that token ID is unique, and only you own that token ID for this contract. You can transfer ownership of that ID from one person to another, but there's only going to be one token ID that exists for that contract in general, and that's actually the premise of NFTs. A lot of people think NFTs are like maybe artwork or that they're maybe real estate or music, but in reality, they're just a single token ID on the blockchain. And that token ID sometimes can have metadata associated with it. And what it does is it points to uh, something external that actually goes into detail of what that NFT actually represents. Um, and so this might seem a little bit strange because like how is it binding? Like where is the legality from that? And so if you think about how uh, Bitcoin works or blockchains work in general, block or Bitcoin really isn't worth anything. The only reason why Bitcoin is worth something is because we agree that it's worth something. It's a set of people who all play into the idea that this is something that is worthwhile, something that we believe has value. And so because we believe it has value, therefore it does have value. It's very similar with NFTs. NFTs really just says, hey, you own this token ID. And because we are a part of that system, we are honoring that system. And so that's how NFTs work. The metaverse is similar to NFTs, but like a collection of them. So if you think of maybe a virtual reality world with land, locations, items, everything that you see in a virtual world is really just an NFT. And so these are things that could be, so metaverse is definitely virtual, but NFTs could be both digital or it could be something in the physical world. Um, a few other presenters, like Mac, even said tomorrow he's going to touch on NFTs. So I'm not going to dive too deep into either one of those. But in general, these things are going to be uh, like standard when it comes to the world that we live in, similar to email. That eventually anything that can be owned will be owned and represented as an NFT. Um, because there is actual value in doing so. It's not just doing it for fun. It's actually provides value as far as like transferring things from one person to another without any centralized institution between you and that person. Uh, Also, DAOs are similar in that regard, as far as being something that uh, are the world will eventually start using and has started using over the last few years. And so, because I don't want to dive too deep into NFTs or metaverse because other presenters will. I kind of wanted to take this time to really dive into DAOs. So a DAO is very similar to an LLC or a corporation. It is basically an organization that is defined by a set of rules. It has members. It can have board members, regular members. It can have shares. It has a treasury. It can have it can have anything that you want to have in it in regards to being setting up your organization. So it's very similar to LLC. So I've seen multiple LLCs set up, and they're not all set up the same. It really depends on how you want your organization to run. So typically in the DAO, you have company settings like how many shares, the name of the company. Like I said, you'll have board members, membership, and so these things are very similar to what you'll find in an LLC. However, it's actually very different because in LLC you define who the members are, and it's essentially maintained or centralized organization that's maintained by a set of people, where DEOs are not organized or maintained by a single person, but it's maintained uh, decentralized through all of its members that happen to join it. Um, when the blockchains in themselves, like I said earlier, they're databases that are shared um, from different nodes across the world. Everyone shares the exact same database. And when you think about that, there's no one who really owns it. Like you might own an NFT, you might own some cryptocurrency, but you don't actually own the data that says that you own it. The actual data itself is shared by everyone. The actual contracts themselves are shared by anyone. Anyone can use any contract. The contract might have stipulations in there that talk about specific uh, addresses, but all contracts can be used by anyone and are visible to anyone. And so when you think about it that way, you can actually create a DAO, an organization, set it up. And once it's set up, at this point, it's out of your hands. Anyone can use it and anyone can be a part of it. Uh, and so if you think about an organization in that way, it's very different than a traditional LLC. Um, so one example I can give you is there was recently um, for sale a constitution. Like I think the Constitution, like the Constitution of the United States, I believe there's only four of them, four original versions of it in the world. And so one of them was for sale. And so there was a DAO last year where a person put together a DAO to actually buy the original constitutions, the United States constitutions, at auction. It didn't work because they didn't have enough money, but they actually raised a lot of money. I think they raised a few $1 million. It just wasn't enough. And even though that they didn't win the auction, everyone was able to go back in and get their money out. And this was something that was created by a single person, launched into the blockchain world, and at that point, it was out of that person's hands, and it was really up to the community to reach those goals of actually obtaining the United States Constitution. And so, in order for this kind of company to work, decisions have to be made, and the decisions can be made by a single person. A lot of time, there's voting that actually happens. And so a lot of times you don't want to give the person with the most money uh, the ability to vote. A lot of times you want to give the person with the most contribution to the DAO the most weight when it comes to voting. So a lot of DAOs have this thing called reputation. So as you are participating in the DAO and you are doing certain activities, uh, the actual members of the DAO can vote to increase your reputation. If your reputation is increased, that increases your weight in general when it comes to voting. Um, and and let me actually move to the next slide about this. So one of the things that's great about this is that it definitely is something that is uh, only on the only on the virtual world, only on blockchains. And so it was kind of hard to figure out how will this play a part when it comes to the world. Like how will other entities look at this? But as of now, uh, this is becoming more and more real. So why should you care about these things? Like I said, these things are becoming more legal and more tangible. Bitcoin is a legal tender in El Salvador. Um, I see conversations all the time in Panama, as well as Mexico, and even Venezuela. I actually see them on the news as far as them passing legislation for allowing Bitcoin to be legal tender in those countries as well. I've also seen art, real estate, music, all being sold as NFTs. These things aren't as localized here to the United States as some other countries. However, just last year, Wyoming actually passed a DAO law saying that DAOs can be recognized as legal entities. And so, just thinking about that, you can actually be sued by a DAO now. You can actually go to like a store, like a Walmart or whatever, and it's owned by a DAO. And so these things are no longer these virtual items that are just sitting there on a blockchain, and you hear the word DAO, you hear the word NFT, but you don't really know what they are. These things are actually coming to your door and will be something that if this is not something you're involved in, you will be involved in. There's actually a plot of land in Wyoming. They're creating a brand new city. You can look it up. It's called CityDAO .io, and they're creating a new city in Wyoming that the entire city is going to be governed by DAOs. It's really interesting, and anyone can take a part of it. Anyone can actually go buy land, build a house, be a part of the community, HOAs, taxes, everything, all governed by DAOs. Uh, and so it's interesting to see how this is going to develop. But the way they're doing it, like I said, DAOs are actually just contracts written on the blockchain that anyone can use. So once it's done for this city in Wyoming, anyone can actually take those exact same contracts and apply it to another plot of land. Um, and so one of the things that's really important to know about about DAOs is that these contracts are sometimes modular. When you think about taxes or other legal documents like LLCs, you can go to some of these websites and actually download a form that you have to fill out, and now you can like create a set of articles, create a list of like some board members, create meeting minutes. These things are kind of standard between different organizations. DAOs are no different. There's a lot of different contracts out there that determine how a DAO will work in different for different attributes, for different features. And so, as this technology is evolving, there's more and more ways it's being used, and it's not something that you have to build yourself. You can actually just copy or reuse something that's existing. And so, because of this, I think that if anyone wants to get involved, I think now is the best time to get involved. When it's right in the very beginning, I think eventually these things will be more and more regulated, and the opportunity will shrink along the way. Very similar to how it was in Web one, Web two, or even the .com era. Uh, and so if you ever wanted to create your own company, if you ever wanted to create an organization, a community, then this is something you should think about. Maybe not creating a LLC, maybe not creating a corporation, maybe creating as a DAO, having it legalized in the state of Wyoming. Because even though you don't live in Wyoming, you can still do that. And maybe this is something that'll be better for your business, better for your organization. So how does this work? There are a bunch of different DAOs out there in different categories. I have like a little graphics uh, on the right. And I'm not sure if it's easy to see. Uh, I can only zoom in so much without taking up the whole screen, but I'll try to read it if everyone can't see it. But there are investment DAOs, and these are considered to be like venture capitalist firms. One of the biggest one is Bit DAO. I feel like I keep saying the word DAO so often that I'm going to like not be able to pronounce it anymore. But if you look up DAO, there's $2 billion right now in the treasury. It's the world's largest, and it's just like a VC firm. So anyone can participate. You put your money in, right? You can get reputation to vote. Of course, when you first start off, you don't have much, but you'll have some. But over time, if you're participating, you can get more and more reputation. And that specific DAO is deciding what other businesses to invest in, and so they'll take their capital, invest in the business, and now they're actually part owners of another business. And then that business, as it grows, will funnel money back into the company, just like a traditional VC firm, but it's actually created as a DAO. Anyone can be a part of it. I'm not sure who all has been to Chicago or has heard of Soho House. I remember I used to live in Chicago, and Soho House was pretty cool. It was like one of those clubs that were very exclusive. I would just sit outside. The very first floor of Soho House is open to the public, but the rest of the floors are not. And I was thinking about like joining and all the things that had to take place. I believe it's for artists, musicians, uh, different types of actors. It's a different theme of clientele there. And so this type of idea of having these communities or clubs are actually taking place also as DAOs. So one of them is FWB, which is Friends with Benefits. It's like basically you and your friends get together, you're part of this club, and the benefits are you're investing in things together, you're sharing ideas together, you're making decisions together. GCR, can't remember what it stands for, but it's also very similar, where it's a club, and they are sharing. It's more of a technology club, and they're sharing ideas, and they're sharing how they want to build more technology for Web three. So it's a very specific Web3 club. Um, these things you can look up on your own, but I kind of want to dive deep into like what does this look like in code? Uh, I have three different examples of what the code looks like. This is very different than NFTs, where an NFT is a single contract. A DAO is actually a collection of different contracts. You might have a contract that talks about or that has stipulations on how to have board members. You'll have a contract that stipulates how to vote or that stipulates how to gain reputation. And so all these contracts that you put together, and they all are for the same exact DAO to actually govern how that DAO works. And I kind of want to go into each one of these just so you can see. Oops. Let me open up one of these. Everything when it comes to DAOs are all open source as well. So let me share my screen. So here's an example of Open Zeppelin contracts. So Open Zeppelin is it is basically just a library of contracts. They're trying to help people create DAOs. They have a GitHub, and if you scroll down, they talk about um, different way, or sorry, they talk about the installation of starting to create your own DAO and what particular features this set of libraries have. A lot of times when you look at DAO libraries, there's usually a contracts folder. So I click on this contracts folder, I can actually go and look at governance, and I can look at the this the solidity file for it. And so in this particular one, it is talking about how to do proposals, um, how to uh, how to handle NFTs, um, versioning, the different state of the proposal. If you have a proposal and it changes over time, how to handle the state. And so a lot of times what you do is you look at specific contracts that make sense to you. So like I said, this one has a list of different contracts. And so you might go in and you can actually go and see what contracts make sense to you. So this is just one example. Another one is um, Argon Dao. So let me just show that real quick. So Oregon, in this example, they have a contract for your board members, about how to vote on board members. If you become a board member, how do you vote as a board member? What shares does a board member have? And so you can go through and basically read all these contracts. And the GitHub repositories are pretty good. Like they go into a lot of detail on how to use it. So this is if you actually want to create a DAO yourself and you want to do it step by step, your own code, this is the way to do it. However, there are easier ways. So one of the things I wanted to touch on was actually Colony. So Colony is another application. There's actually lots of different applications that allow you to create DAOs without knowing how to code. Colony is one of them. And the cool thing about Colony is that it is free. The only thing that they charge you for, though, it's not really a charge. It's more like transaction fee. As you are, as you're making payments, you will be charged a transaction fee. But it doesn't actually charge the people who are running it. It just adds a little tax to the end. But this particular one is really easy to use. The only problem, it's not really a problem. The only thing that will stop you from jumping in right away is that it runs on XDAI. and so you need XDAI in order to actually start it. So if you click on Learn More, and it says you can create a DAO in 60 seconds or 90 seconds, and click on Get Started. I can create a colony. One thing that you didn't see, because I've done it before, is it actually connects to my MetaMask account. And so my MetaMask account, I don't have a lot. I believe I have like 75x DAI. And so using Colony, I can go here, and even though it says Colony, these are actually DAOs. These were what it will do is it will actually create contracts, store them on the blockchain for you. But I was actually thinking, like, what would be a really cool organization to create that was a DAO? The first thing that came up was a music studio or like a record label. And so I wanted to call my record label like the New Era or New Era Records. I think I want to give it a unique URL. Era Records. This is the beginning of me creating my own DAO. And for my DAO, I had two options. I'm sorry, let me go back. I'm not sure if there's a way for me to go back, but it gave me two options. I'm sorry, I clicked on it too fast. A lot of times when you have a DAO, you want to govern the DAO using a token because you don't want just anyone to join the DAO. You want them to actually pay to be a part of your DAO, and so they're either going to pay with an existing token that exists in the world already, or you can actually create your own token. So in this case, I'm going to create my own token, and I'm going to call it the New Era token. My token symbol is going to be NERA. So I'm creating a DAO, New Era Records DAO, and this is going to be the native token for it. So I don't think you can see this, but as of right now, it's interacting with my MetaMask account. It's asking me to pay for certain things. It is really cheap. So it's not running on the Ethereum blockchain. It's running on the XDAI blockchain, which is a lot cheaper as far as gas fees are concerned. And so for every single one of these checkboxes that's coming up, it's actually asking me to go ahead and pay for it. What it's actually doing is creating contracts for me and storing them on the blockchain. And every single time that does that is very similar to transferring money from one person to another. You have to pay a gas fee. And
I don't think B. I don't think we see it on. I don't think we see what you're seeing on the screen. We just see 0 to Dow in 90 seconds. Just FYI.
oh, I'm
Now you
sorry.
can see. Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry about that. So I thought I was sharing the screen. So when I first went to this site, it asked me to create the DAO, give it a name, create a token. It's what I did. I just filled in the information as far as what I wanted. And right now I'm actually just going through one by one and it's adding these contracts to the blockchain for me. It takes a second for each one. Okay. So now these contracts are now in. I have a brand new DAO, New Era Records DAO, and if you click on these three dots, it actually this my DAO is actually stored on the blockchain at this address, which is available to anyone. So if you want to join my DAO, that's the address you'll use. I created a brand new token, the NERA, New Era token, and that's what this is, the native token address. As you can see, I don't have any Near tokens because everything's brand new. But what I can do is I can actually go in and mint tokens. I can mint, let's say, 1 million. Every single time I pause and stop is because my MetaMask on the side is asking me to confirm things. So I just minted 1 million Near tokens. So now my new DAO has those tokens, and I can actually give guidance and governance on how these would be distributed. Me myself, I have 0. So the DAO has 1 million minted, but no one actually has those. I haven't distributed them yet. But now because this is actually an organization, I kind of want to know. I kind of want to set up how I want my organization to be ran. And so, like this is a record label. One of the things that'd be really cool is if there was a group of people that was in charge of looking for talent and deciding if that person should be signed or not, right? And so I will create a new team.
Someone's at the front door.
Oops, sorry about that. That's actually built to do that. And so there is a specific term for this. What is it called? I think it's called ANR, PNR. And the purpose of the team will be to find new talent, find and sign talent. So I'm creating this team, and I can create a bunch of different teams. And so what will happen is, if you decide to join my DAO, you can decide what teams you want to be a part of. And all those teams will have different responsibilities, and they'll have different budgets. And within that team will have proposals, and the members of that team can vote on what proposals they want to execute. And so going through here, setting up my different teams, creating rules as far as how things are going to be distributed, even creating the voting aspect of it, where it says motions and disputes, which just happens to be an extension. So I can go in and I can set up how reputation is going to be managed. So all this can be done right here in the colony website. It makes things a lot easier, so you don't actually have to do all the hard coding yourself. But the hard coding is good too if you want something really custom made that this doesn't support. This is a nice way to just get started. And once you're done creating your DAO, and you ask people to join it, at that point you can actually go to Wyoming, register it as a legal entity, and it's an actual company here in the United States. It is 4:43, and so I kind of want to stop here and ask if there's any questions. I'm looking in the comments, and it says, "Would you want to create a white paper around this entity?" Yes, you would, because if you were asking people to join your record label, you want them to know exactly how it works. So you probably want to create a website around it, and advertise it, because your record company needs funding, unless you're going to fund it yourself. So the more documentation around it, the more you advertise for it, the more successful it'll be. Any other questions?
So we'll talk it up while we're getting questions here going on. So like, yeah, man, thank you, B. This is great. So like, I guess one of the things that I've been trying to kind of track down a lot of is that sometimes like, so this is to be back up a little bit. The whole reason why like we show Colony or you show Colony today is that the it's I kind of look at it as it's a nice like GUI on top of creating all of the actual smart contracts that are needed. Sure, as a developer, could I go try and put all these together and then deploy them to the blockchain? Sure, but I don't think that's where the value comes in at. The value, it seems to me, is around being able to use this DAO as a mechanism for whatever the business requirement is, whatever I'm trying to control, or whatever community I'm trying to build. Do you kind of see it the same way, or?
Yeah, for sure. I think using like no code or low code tools is the way to go until you realize that that's not working for you. And even there, these contracts exist on the blockchain, and so you can still add to it outside of Colony IO. But just getting something started, um, and allowing your community base to jump in. There might be some tweaks along the way, but just getting started, I think, is the most important thing. So not spending too much time on the code, but actually just having something to get up and running, to have your business that represents how you want your business to run. I think is very important.
Because one of the guys that's presenting tomorrow, he was like, why doesn't like Detroit Black Tech or Hacking with the Homies create his own DAO? And I'm like I don't like I was like I don't know what value would that bring. But as I think more about it, it may be of interest, I guess, if I wanted to be able to have more people in the community kind of share in the you know I don't know, different like different fundraising events that we do or things of that nature. Maybe that would be a reason to do that. I like your record label example, for example, and maybe more companies. I think there's need to, like, I'm trying to think of like a company that's kind of took on like I like a lot of the examples you gave around like the municipality deciding to create a DAO. Basically, that's pretty dope. Like, I'm trying to think for myself, like, what can I do that I can really exercise this? Um, so that I'm still thinking through it. I'm just talking just to be talking, but I just think it's a very intriguing concept.
The little bit of work that we did, at least a little bit of work I've done in Tech Town, I can imagine it being useful there as well. Just having a treasury where we can actually help other small businesses here in Detroit, like launch, and having it be a community based effort. So there are DAO nonprofits as well.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, I don't know. Every single business I can think of, I can either launch it by myself, and it's just me. I'm thinking about the whole thing myself. I have to do all the funding myself, or I can make it a community led organization. If I think about it that way, and then I transition to more of a community led organization, it ends up being more powerful. And so there's really no limit. I think any business you do by yourself, you can probably do as a DAO.
And Tamika Reed just put up a question here, or a comment. She said she's building one as a goal for people to earn while they learn. So that's interesting.
That's
That
interesting.
yeah, I think the key here is that it's like you're gonna see all these interesting ideas come out. And I think what I took from your presentation is like, yes, the basis of all this stuff is, for DAO at least, is smart contracts. And
Yep.
as developers, if we really just need to understand the concepts of a smart contract, and if we need to go and code a smart contract, sure, we can figure it out, but let's try and use what's out there. If it doesn't meet your needs, then go build. Like, for example, like I use OpenSea, and there's purists out there that hate OpenSea. I'm sorry, okay. uh, but OpenSea to me is very easy for me to use. Now, it doesn't do some of the things I wanted to do. For example, royalties at OpenSea, I only can assign royalties to one person. Like, I would love to be able to say, I want to have like a group of people own a digital asset, like NFT, and split the royalties, 4 ways. I can't do that there. The only way for me to do that was be to either go to another platform
Mhm.
that supports that, or I need to write it myself. You know what I mean? And I just, I don't, I I don't have enough time to, because then at that point, once you write it, and it's like, again, to me, it's like the blockchain is like a database to me. It's like, sure, can I go in and add my own schema to a web application? But if the UI does not know how to present that data, it's not going to make any sense. So me going in and modifying the contract so royalties can happen, yes, it'll work for me, but nobody else will be able to use it easily, and that's sometimes what we're trying to do. All right, so here goes another question here. So macro is right asset. The challenge facing many in Web3 is explaining the value of a DAO, a token, etc. Within a simple framework to anyone outside of tech. That is always a challenge with any tech idea. So Pierre is right, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an interview with WXYZ, which is a station in Detroit. And they asked me like, "So tell me about an NFT." And I was like, I gotta explain this, because he was like, make it. He was like, don't use technical jargon, and it's like it's very hard to do that. What are you? I mean, I think it is. I don't know. Do you see it any other way? B.
I think it's hard right now, only because like I remember email first came out, it was on command line, and there was no UI at all.
Right.
And I remember describing email to people, and it was very difficult. But now it's not. It's part of life. I think it's going to get there. It's just
Okay.
because it's the very beginning stages.
Yeah, because they were like, well, you use the word, like I was like, it needs to be stored on the blockchain. They're like, well, you use blockchain, now you got to explain blockchain. And then you use the word smart. As every word you use, you almost have to like define it so that people understand it. So hopefully it will get easier. All right, so I appreciate you, Bryan, for coming on and giving us that presentation. I think a lot of people were curious around what is a DAO and how could you set it up. You gave an example of one tool that we can use to go build one and play with. So we really appreciate that. So thank you, and we will move on to our next speaker.